My girlfriend suggested a trial separation to see how we both felt. I agreed to the idea. By the third day, she posted a photo cuddling another guy. Instead of confronting her, I chose to change the locks and pack up her belongings. When she came back, she was in tears, saying it was all just a test. My response was simple. I passed. It was a moment of realization that our relationship was not as stable as I thought. Reflecting on this experience, I realized the importance of recognizing warning signs in a relationship. This incident occurred after 2 years of being together. It all began on a routine Tuesday evening when Allison, my girlfriend, returned home from work looking disturbed. She then proposed the idea of a temporary breakup. Abel's gaze met mine as she spoke earnestly. Just a temporary experiment to assess our feelings and ensure we both still want the same things, she explained quickly, sensing my disbelief. My initial suspicion was that she may have met someone else and was contemplating our future, but I chose not to voice my concerns. Where is this coming from? I inquired instead. In response, she shared a story about her friend Megan trying a similar strategy with her partner, claiming it brought them closer and reignited their love, likening it to a relationship reset button. Despite my aversion to games, I listened as Allison defended it as a growth exercise rather than a mere ploy. It crossed my mind that perhaps this was a suggestion from her therapist following her recent therapy sessions, although the idea seemed questionable to me. The deliberation lasted about 20 minutes until I realized she was informing me rather than seeking my opinion. With a nonchalant shrug, I replied, "If that's what you think is best." Her response to my easy agreement seemed tinged with disappointment. Perhaps she anticipated me pleading with her not to go through with it. However, that is not my usual approach. We agreed on certain terms. For the next week, we would act as though we were not a couple. No phone calls, no messages unless they pertain to apartment logistics. She planned to stay with her friend Megan. After 7 days, we would reassess the situation. That night, she packed a bag and headed to Megan's place. The apartment felt different with her gone, though not necessarily in a negative way. It was quieter and more organized. I found myself sleeping better than I had in months. The following day was rather uneventful. I attended work. I work as an architectural engineer, went to the gym, and had a beer with a coworker. I did not receive any communication from Allison, which was in line with how I greeted. Surprisingly, I realized that I didn't really miss her, which was significant in itself. Day 2 was similar, allowing me to catch up on projects, call my brother, and watch a movie that Allison likely wouldn't have enjoyed. Still no word from her, which was alright. Then came day 3. I don't typically spend much time on Instagram, but I have an account. While having lunch and scrolling through the app, I stumbled upon a post from Ally. Son, I found her snuggled up on a sofa with a stranger I didn't recognize. His arm was draped around her, and she rested her head on his shoulder. The caption below the photo stated, "Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need." I gazed at the image, puzzled. This wasn't at Megan's usual place. The background apartment was unfamiliar. It had been posted that morning. The idea of hitting a reset button on our relationship felt more like a test of endurance. After finishing my lunch, I placed my dish in the sink and promptly made 3 phone calls. First, I contacted my landlord to discuss the situation and explore my options regarding the apartment, given that both our names were on the lease. Ted, the landlord, explained that I couldn't legally bar her from entering the premises. However, he did suggest that if she had permanently moved out, rather than temporarily, we could discuss modifying the lease. In the meantime, I needed to approach this situation differently. Next, I called my lawyer friend Chris to seek legal advice on my standing in this matter. He was straightforward. I couldn't change the locks or remove her. Her actions amount to an illegal eviction. Despite any anger you may feel, you do not have to continue residing with her. It is recommended to document everything in case the situation escalates. As a next step, we reached out to a friend who had a spare room, Ryan, and asked if you could stay there for a few days. Ryan agreed promptly. You gathered your essentials, including some of her clothes and belongings from the shared storage closet, and left them by the door with a text message notifying her of the situation. After muting her number, you went to stay at Ryan's place. The following morning, you and Ryan discussed short-term rental options to ensure you would not need to live with someone who would resort to such actions. At midday, I received a text from Allison stating we are on break, not broken up. Where are you? I chose not to reply, allowing her to dwell in the uncertainty she had created. Later that day, Ryan accompanied me to the apartment to find that Allison was not there, and the suitcases I had packed were missing. I quickly gathered a few more personal items and left. The following day, I discussed my options with Ted once more. He advised that the best legal approach would be for one of us to formally request removal from the current lease and sign a new one. The individual staying would need to demonstrate the ability to afford the rent on their own income. Due to my stable employment and flawless payment record, Ted indicated that I could take over the lease independently if that was the decision made. That evening, Allison finally called, and I decided to answer. It was time to put an end to the games. You stated that we were broken up for a week. I calmly reminded her. You suggested we pretend it wasn't real and that it was just a test. A test you failed when you shared a photo of yourself cuddling with another guy after only 3 days. And with that, the conversation concluded. A coworker friend stammered through tears. I don't care if he's the Pope, we're finished. She sighed harder, admitting it was all a test to gauge my commitment to the relationship. The pieces finally clicked. This wasn't about fixing our bond, but a manipulative ploy to test my loyalty. I calmly responded, well, it was a test and I passed. I have enough self-respect to not tolerate games like this. He changed tactics, insisting I couldn't just end things because we shared a lease. I explained that while the lease was a valid concern, I had already spoken to Ted about the options. We could transfer the lease to one of us if we both agreed and met the financial requirements, or we could both find new living arrangements. The decision was hers to make, but our relationship was unequivocally over. Allison was taken aback, shocked that I had already considered the next steps. I'm done. Eventually, we agreed that I would take over the lease. Allison would officially move out, and I would be the sole tenant going forward. Ted drew up the paperwork the next day, and within a week, the apartment was legally mine alone. It cost me an additional security deposit and some fees. The clean break was worth every penny. Over the next few days, Allison came with her friend Megan to collect the rest of her things while I made myself scarce. I had documented everything with photos before she arrived and after she left to make sure there were no issues. Over the next few days, the text continued swinging wildly between rage and pleading. I responded only to practical matters, when she could pick up her mail, arrangements for the lease, etc. After about a week, she seemed to accept it. Then came the social media campaign. They post about betrayal and men who can't handle strong women. Mutual friends started calling, asking what had happened. I told the truth simply and without embellishment. Most understood. A few took her side. I let them go too. 2 weeks after the infamous text, I ran into Jordan, the guy from the Instagram post, at a coffee shop. He recognized me, looked uncomfortable, and then approached my table. Look, man, I just want you to know I had no idea she had a boyfriend. She told me she was single, he said. I believed him. Allison had apparently been laying groundwork with him for weeks, long before her break proposal. He showed me texts going back nearly a month. Nothing explicit, but definitely flirting. He seemed like a decent guy caught in her web. I thanked him for his honesty and wished him well. It's been about a month now. I'm still in the apartment, though I'll probably move when the lease ends in 2 months. Too many memories. I'm not rushing into dating again, need some time. After missing so many warning signs with Allison, I had to recalibrate my radar. Last I heard, she's not with Jordan either. According to mutual friends, he backed off after learning the full story. She's telling everyone who will listen that I'm the villain who threw away a great relationship over one little mistake. But here's what I know. Anyone who tests your love through deliberate manipulation doesn't really want a partner. They want a possession, a puppet, a prop in their personal drama. Life's too short for that nonsense. So if your partner ever suggests pretending to break up as a test, save yourself some time and make it real on the spot. Some tests you pass by walking away. Update, 3 months later, I hadn't planned on updating, but there have been developments worth sharing. First, the apartment situation resolved itself well. After completing the lease transfer, Ted offered to let me transfer to another unit in the building, a smaller one-bedroom that had just been renovated, if I wanted a fresh start. It turned out to be a bit less, and I managed to escape the memories without the hassle of finding an entirely new place. I recently moved in with a fresh lease agreement. Allison's attempt to portray me as the villain fizzled out after approximately 6 weeks. Interestingly, she had also tried the let's take a break routine with Jordan when they were dating. Jordan, having experienced this manipulation tactic before, promptly ended the relationship upon recognizing it. When he shared this experience with our mutual friends, it greatly diminished any sympathy for her side of the story. Surprisingly, Allison's ex-boyfriend Eric contacted me through a mutual acquaintance after learning about the situation. We met for a beer, and he revealed that she had pulled similar stunts throughout their 3-year relationship. The final straw for him was when she tested him by claiming she was visiting her sister, but instead checked into a local hotel to see if he would cheat, thinking she was out of town. No, he didn't. She was actually disappointed. She creates problems to feel important, Eric explained. If things are stable, she gets bored and needs to manufacture drama. That conversation was a weirdly cathartic confirmation that the problem wasn't me failing some legitimate relationship test, but her unhealthy need for emotional chaos. As for me, I started dating again casually. Nothing serious, just getting back out there. The whole experience left me with better instincts for spotting red flags, so there's that silver lining. Oh, and the lease. Once the modification was complete and I was the sole tenant on the original apartment, the transfer to the new unit was straightforward. Allison tried to argue she should get half of my security deposit back, but since she had broken the lease early, her choice, not mine, those funds went towards the lease break fees. The landlord's office handled it all professionally. The last I heard about Allison, she's taking time to focus on herself based on her social media, posting inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and how the right person will make you question their love. The irony is almost poetic. Some people asked if I regret ending things so abruptly instead of trying to work through it. Not for a second. What Allison did wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a calculated test of how much manipulation I would tolerate. Finding out the answer was none seems to have been educational for her. Consider this case closed. Sometimes the trash takes itself out,